Yes.
Hmm.
Good evening, everyone. Just a minute. I have to clear this out. Maybe.
Click on that.
There we go. Good evening, everyone. My goodness, it's June already. Summer is around us. Everything is blooming. Our stories are coming out of the ground. We're being nourished, and I welcome you all. So glad to have you join us. Thanks for coming. And Liz, take it away.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. And Jean Hale just joined us all the way from New York City.
Yay.
I think tonight Jean wins the Came From the Furthest award. So I don't know if she's actually
Delighted to be with you. Thank you.
Oh, good. Okay. So all right. So I'm Liz and Sally. We are the co-hosts of Contra Costa Tail Spinners. And here we go. We've got, first of all, I want to acknowledge that it is SAC board member all-stars night tonight. We've got 4 current members of the SAC board here with us and a couple of us, including me, former board members. And some of them are telling, some of them are listening, but all of them are the reason that we are able to be here together and using SAC Zoom and just all their support for the swap, all the swaps and bringing the swaps together through the SAC genre events every month. And so let's just give it up for SAC board members. All right. And one of those board members is our featured teller tonight, and that's Rupa Mohan. So let me just briefly introduce Rupa. I think, Rupa, that I was one of the people who helped talk you into joining the SAC board. So thank you for doing that. Rupa and I first met each other because we're both Asian Art Museum storytellers. The Art Museum in San Francisco that has a unique storytelling program. And then I found out that Rupa is from Chennai, which is the only city in Tamil Nadu area in India that I've visited. So that's a wonderful connection. And then there's SAC, there's the swap. Gosh, there are many. Rupa has just burst upon our local scene and the national scene and the international scene through her involvement in Chautauqua, where she embodies a real person. I don't know if you're going to be doing any of that tonight, but to folk tales, mostly in mythology at the museum, to personal stories. We got to go to a wonderful storytelling retreat in Kauai, Hawaii together a couple of months ago, where she charmed everybody with a personal story. So she is just so multi-talented, and we're so happy to have you here. Please share a story or stories with us, Rupa. Welcome.
Namaste, greetings. It's so nice to be among friends, and thank you for that very generous intro, Liz. I am going to take you back a long time, pretty long time, when a baby was being named in Chennai, that Liz mentioned, but now at that time was known as Madras in Tamil Nadu, South India. It was February, and this 11-day-old baby had to be given a name. So she was put in a cradle, and which was decorated with flowers, and some women started rocking the cradle singing, "Araro, ariro, araro, ariro." Well, and then at the auspicious moment, the baby was picked up and placed on the lap of her mother. It was a girl baby. And the priest was there officiating, and he urged the father to whisper the name of the baby into her ear, which he did. Then he had to write her name in the Tamil script on a platter filled with raw rice. He hesitated a little bit, trying to figure it out, and then he wrote it. And then the priest had to announce the name to all the guests who had come to bless the baby. The priest also hesitated because it was a rather unusual name. Rubamati, he said. And the baby's grandfather, a scholarly, kind of dominating patriarch of the family, said, no, it's Roopmati. And everybody repeated after him, Roopmati. And they probably wondered where he got this name from, because at that time, girl babies, were named after the Hindu goddesses or attributes of goddesses, like the lotus, in order to bring them good luck and to bless them throughout their lives. Well, that baby was given a goddess's name as a middle name, Vijaya Lakshmi, which means the victorious Lakshmi, but that name was soon forgotten because Roopmati was her official name. And when she entered her school in the kindergarten, it was a rather long name because her father's name was Vijaya Raghavan, which means the victorious Lord Rama. So it was Roopmati Vijaya Raghavan, which sometimes wouldn't even fit on a page. So as it was customary, the initial was taken. She became the Roopmati, but only her teachers would call her Roopmati. All the others started calling her Rupa. And now you know who this is about. Well, Rupa as a little girl wondered, how come my name is so unusual? Because I didn't come across any other Roopmatis. Rupa was quite common, but there was not a single Rupa in my school, but Roopmati was even more rare. I wondered if there was a Roopmati in all of Madras. I went and asked my parents how my name came about. They told me that my grandfather, the scholar, had lived in North India, in the state of Gujarat, and he had selected all the granddaughters' names ending with the suffix mati, which means natured. And nobody questioned him because nobody dared question the elders those days. And it was their duty or their privilege to give us our names. So my mother also told me that it means beautiful. Well, I look back at my baby pictures and I look rather funky. So that didn't really apply to me, though my mother must have thought I was very beautiful. But Roopmati, I learned, was beautiful natured, which I like. It's better than all the outward beauty, right? So I went along with Rupa, and Roopmati was put away, left for only official purposes. Well, some of my uncles were rather naughty, and they started calling me Rupee, which kind of is the currency of India even today. And one uncle called me Rupinsky. Made me sound Russian. But we thought it was all fun, and life went on, and I became Rupa Vijayaraghavan. Well, when I was in my late teens, a lady came to help my grandma cook. She was this very intelligent-looking lady with sparkling eyes who had fallen upon bad times and had decided to cook for a living. She would make very delicious food, but she also had a temper. But somehow she had a soft spot for me. the oldest daughter or granddaughter. One day she came with a calendar that she had picked up at another home. And she showed me this calendar with a lot of excitement. She said, look, you are here on this calendar. Well, I looked at the calendar and guess what I saw? I actually saw an image of maybe a prince and a queen sitting next to each other on stallions. Here is that image. Let me move over so you can see it. And they're sitting there on their horses getting ready to hunt. And beneath it was the caption, Rani Rupmati with her paramour, Baz Bahadur. What? And it was dated in something in the mid 1500s. I was intrigued. I looked at it. I was enthralled. And this cook was really very excited, more than anyone else. She said, you're a Rani, you're a queen, you're a queen. But she had to take that calendar back that very evening and return it. And I didn't have a way of copying that or photographing it. So I just had this new avatar, or at least a role model that I could associate my name with. Well, nobody else cared, but this cook, her name was Jaya, put me on a pedestal from that day and started making some special treats fit for a queen. I remember this one thing she made, a concoction of jaggery, which is a very natural sweetener, and coconut and cardamom. And she made a toffee with it. She made it into a round ball and she wrapped it in paper. And she secretly gave it to me saying, eat this. I just loved it. But of course, I had to share it with my two baby sisters. For a few years, I really felt at the top of the world. And I was soon to be married. And on the eve of my wedding, this lady Jaya picked a fight with another cook and she vanished. She completely disappeared from my life. I felt really brokenhearted, but I was caught in the whirlwind of my quick wedding and departure to America. When I landed here with my freshly minted green card, I went to immigration and a stern-looking officer took a look at it and said, Rupmati? Well, I dared not correct him. I nodded and I said, yes, happy to be granted entry. And after that, when I went to DMV, there were other interpretations of my official name. Rupmati? Yes, I said. I was too scared to correct anyone those days. And I don't blame them. It was indeed a long name and hard to pronounce. My husband was very amused because he had not really encountered this name before. He said, there's something wrong here. There are two consonants next to each other. He was very much into English grammar from his Catholic school days. He said, it should have been Rupamati. I told him, you want to go and challenge my grandpa? Feel free to do that. My grandpa was still around, though he had suffered 2 strokes, but still he was a dominant presence in our family. My husband didn't dare to. And we grandkids had not questioned my grandfather, I must tell you. All of us were named with the Mati suffix. My sister was Madhumati, my cousins Indumati, Charumati. They were all from northern India. But mine, I must say, was probably the most unique one of the lot. Except now I had a connection with the Queen, which was pretty exciting. Now, as the days rolled on, I just forgot about my official name and I was Rupa to everyone. My name was packed away in a drawer or in my wallet, and I didn't have to really deal with it very much. But when I got introduced to the wide world of Google, I decided to explore. And that is when I came across the story of Roopmati, my namesake. Well, I want to share this with you, though I still don't understand why I was given the name. And I think you will agree with me. It turns out that in the mid 1500s, Roopmati was a shepherdess, a daughter of a Hindu chieftain in a state in the middle of India called Madhya Pradesh. Well, this was just bordered by a beautiful river called the Narmada River and the Deccan Plateau beneath it. Well, it is said that early one morning, Roopmati was out tending to her goats and singing to the goddess, the river goddess Reva. Pranida Punyada Sarvada Narmada. She didn't notice that a hunting party had come with the young Muslim ruler from a nearby kingdom called Mandu. And he listened to her beautiful singing and took a look at her beautiful face, and it was love at first sight. She, of course, was startled. She covered her face with a veil and she ran away, remembering her father's precautions that she should not put herself in a dangerous situation. Young girls were being abducted and taken to harems those days. Well, this young fellow called Baz Bahadur would not give up. He pursued her, or stalked her, as we would say today, and he won her heart. Somehow, she was also enchanted by him, but she would not entertain the thought of being his partner or maybe wife unless he granted her two wishes. First of all, he had to approach her father and get his consent. And secondly, she was a devout Hindu and he was a Muslim. And she wanted to make sure she could continue to worship her goddesses, especially the river goddess of Narmada, Reva. I think he was able to convince her father with a generous land grant and some titles. And next, he commissioned his builders to bring the river to her. Yes, he commissioned an aqueduct and a reservoir to be built near a little palace that was also going to come up close to his. Well, how could she say no? She agreed and they got married. And it is said the first few years were just joyful. They loved each other's company. They were both artists and musicians, and they immersed in it. It is said that he had built a pavilion called the Roopmati Pavilion, and she would go up and she would watch the moon and write poetry, and he would write love songs to her. They were so immersed in this that he neglected the affairs of the state, especially after his father passed away and he became the Sultan. And the dark clouds were gathering. Yes, Akbar, the Mughal emperor, was ruling up north in Delhi. And one of his very strong and ruthless generals, Adam Khan, had heard about Roopmati's beauty. I wonder how news traveled those days without social media. Perhaps the storytellers were carrying the stories. Perhaps the artists were drawing portraits which were moving. Perhaps just word of mouth. But the Mughal emperor wanted to annex this little Islamic kingdom, and Adam Khan, of course, volunteered. He gathered a strong army and started marching south. And rumors of this reached Mandu, the capital of Baz Bahadur. And he gathered a shabby army that he could put together quickly, and he went up and met the Mughal army by the Narmada River. It was a fierce battle, and of course, Baz Bahadur lost. And he escaped though, and he fled to a neighboring kingdom. Meanwhile, Roopmati and her ladies in waiting tried to escape. They disguised themselves as flower sellers, and they started running away from the palace, but they got caught. And when they returned, Baz Bahadur took one look at her, and he was happy he had won, and he could not wait. But his hard heart was filled with honor. Yes, very unusual for him, but he suggested that she come to him on her own free will. He will give her 3 days to make up her mind. He was not going to force her. Well, at the end of 3 days, he heard from her lady in waiting that she was ready to receive him. He was so excited. He wore his finest silks and all his jewelry, especially on his turban, and he put on the most strong musk scent, and he went to her chamber filled with anticipation. As he entered, the curtains were fluttering. There was a cool breeze coming in from the Narmada River. It was a full moon night, and on the bed was Roopmati, looking radiant and beautiful, dressed in wedding clothes, bejeweled, and looking irresistible, but she seemed to be fast asleep. He approached her and said, "I have come, my dear. I know you want me now." And she didn't stir. Then he noticed that she was clutching something. Yes, it was a crumpled piece of paper. And when he read it, it said in Urdu, "Farewell, my love, my beloved Baz Bahadur." What? Then he realized that she may have ingested diamond dust because there was sparkling diamonds around her mouth. He shook her, but she was limp. She was gone. "You betrayed me. You took your life," he shouted, and he stormed out. And he never forgave her for doing that. Well, he returned to Akbar and bragged about his conquest of this little kingdom. But he had bad luck and was soon assassinated. Well, the young Sultan Baz Bahadur came back, and he became one of the serfs of this mighty Mughal kingdom. He was heartbroken, and he buried his young love close by. Well, it is said that even today, this beautiful palace is visited by hundreds and thousands of lovers. And they sometimes hear the name Roopmati echoing from the walls, and they hear the tinkling of her bells. You know, I haven't been there. It is on my bucket list. But when I go there, I want to make sure that I hear the name pronounced correctly. Roopmati. Yes, don't you think that's a fair thing? Now, I want to show you a few images from that palace that I think you will appreciate. And this is how it stands even today. And this is probably the pavilion that he built for her, where she would stand and watch the moon and look upon his palace. And this is probably the aqueduct that he built for her. Well, it has been a long journey for me. And I am grateful that though I was named after this tragedy queen, I did not suffer the same fate. I have outlived her by over 40 years. And my grandpa must be very happy up in heaven that my life turned out to be much less tragic. But coming to reality, I must tell you that even Rupa has been massacred quite a bit, even lately. Well, my good friends from childhood call me Roops, which is very affectionate and endearing, so I put up with it. A very kind mentor somehow cannot pronounce Rupa. She calls me Ropa. Now, you tell me, is Rupa difficult for you? Okay. And my last name has become much shorter now. It's not Vijay Raghavan, it is Mohan, which should be much easier for most of you. But most recently, there was this really strange thing where a machine decided to mess with my name. We were going to this retreat that Liz mentioned in Hawaii, and a lot of emails were flying back and forth from the organizer. And every time my name, Rupa, had become Rope. Yes, Rope, R-O-P-E. That is what the brain behind the email or the artificial intelligence or whatever that is decided to mess with my name. I tried correcting it, but to no avail. So finally, when we went to the retreat and all our pictures were up, I had sent in a nice picture where I looked like a queen dressed in a sari, but under that was Rope with Rupa in parentheses. It was amusing, but also a little odd and annoying. Now, on the last day, we were supposed to take down these pictures and throw them into the fire. Somehow, I could not get myself to do that. In our culture, we did not believe in self-destructing like that. And it brought me visions of the old practice of sati, where queens fell into the funeral pyres of their husbands. So I excused myself and said I would hang on to my picture. But I peeled that label that said Rope. And I took it and I dropped it into the fireplace and watched it with so much joy as it became ashes. Now, I think I reached the end of my rope. And I was not going to let any man or machine mess with my name anymore. Namaste and thank you.
Thank you, Rupa. Wow, that was what a journey, a long journey. And thank you so much. You really brought us all along with you. And all of us have wonderful, name stories are some of my favorite. And we all have them, but yours is really special and you helped us really understand a lot and enjoy. the journey at the same time. So thank you so much. Okay, I will actually put in the chat the list of who's coming up so everybody knows. But our next storyteller is also on the SAC board. In fact, she's the president of the SAC board, and that is Sarah Armstrong. I think we all know her. And Sarah, tell us a story.
Thank you, Liz. I would love to. Prince Norman walked determinedly towards the special bench he had in his mother's rose garden. The whole castle was in turmoil. He tried to speak to his mother and his father, but they were too busy. He had come of age, and it was time to choose a wife. Well, Queen Rosalie had ideas about how to do that, and she talked with King Frederick, Prince Norman's father, and together they decided what to do. A proclamation was sent out to all the lands, their lands, and the lands beyond, for princesses to come to the castle for a competition to see who might become Prince Norman's bride. So the preparations were underway, and everyone was running back and forth, and every time Prince Norman tried to speak to his parents, both of them were just too busy for him. Now, they were really wonderful parents. They loved each other, and they loved him a lot. Queen Rosalie had taken charge of his academic learning, and she brought in scholars who taught him all about reading and writing and math and science, and he excelled at those studies. King Norman brought in masters to teach him swordplay and archery and all of those arts. And he also took very seriously his role as father and king to teach his son how to be a just and fair and compassionate king, so that the subjects in their land were happy and healthy and as prosperous as could be. Well, Prince Norman didn't know what to do, and he was trying to think about what he should do, if there was anything he could do, but the time came for the princesses to come. And there were a lot of them. Who knew that there were so many princesses in the area? Well, this was a several days event, and after the first day, the number diminished from 32 to 25. After the second day, after the tasks had been put forward by Queen Rosalie, 25 diminished to 17. After the third day, there were 12 princesses left. And after the fourth day, only 5. One more day, and the competition would be settled. Well, the night before the final test, there was a huge feast. In the throne room, there was food and drink and entertainment. It was wonderful. Everybody had a lovely time. The 5 princesses may have been just a tad nervous about what was to come. But the evening ended, and the young women went off to their rooms. But when they opened the door, each to her chamber, each was amazed. Instead of the mattress that had been there the day before, there were 20 mattresses and 20 eiderdown quilts on top of that. There was a ladder, so one could get to the top, but it was really different. Underneath the last mattress at the bottom was an uncooked pea. Now, the young women didn't know that, but you know that story, right? The one about the queen who decides to identify a princess by putting a pea in her bed, and she tosses and turns all night and wakes up black and blue. You know that story. Well, these young women did not. So each climbed to the top of her 20 mattresses and 20 quilts and went to sleep. The whole castle went to sleep. In the morning, Prince Norman was up early. He went into his mother's rose garden, a beautiful place with roses of every type, of every scent, of every color. And as he reached for a perfect red rose to pick for his mother, a thorn went deep into his finger. It really hurt. It was deep. The royal gardener was right there with some linen, and he wrapped that finger in the linen, and it was fine. All was well. Well, after breakfast, the queen told each of the young women that they would come into the throne room and share a skill or a talent with the court. The first young woman stepped up and curtsied and said, "I'd like to sing you a song." And she was magnificent. The song reached the highest notes and the lowest notes and all the ones in between. It was lyrical. It was delightful. It was a beautiful, beautiful song. And everyone applauded. The second young woman came forward and said, I'd like to demonstrate my proficiency at archery. And she was good. Every single arrow hit that bullseye, and her form was impeccable. And everyone applauded. The third princess stepped forward and curtsied and said, I have a drawing I'd like to share with you. And it was very interesting. It was a drawing, an architectural rendering of a room that she thought would be interesting to add to the palace. It was exquisitely drawn with everything to scale, everything clearly marked. It was a very creative idea as well. And everyone clapped. The fourth young woman came forward and she said, well, in this realm and beyond, there are many different groups who practice many different dances. And I'd like to show you a sampling of those dances. So she twirled and she soared and she leapt and she was graceful. She was light on her feet. She was just magnificent. And everyone clapped. It was time for the fifth young woman to come forward. And as she approached the throne, she was looking a little nervous and she curtsied and she said, before I start, may I ask you a question? Speaking to Prince Norman. He said, certainly. And she said, what happened to your finger? Are you all right? He looked at her and he smiled. And he looked at his mother and she smiled and nodded. And the contest was decided. Now Prince Norman and Princess Coral, for that was her name, married, and they were happy and in love, as were Rosalie and Frederick, as they were continuing to be. And when it was time for King Norman and Queen Rosalie to assume the throne, they were just and kind and compassionate, and all of the people in their realm were happy and safe and lived happily for a long time, not because of a pea, but because of a rose. Thank you.
Wow. Wow, Sarah. Can you tell us where that story comes from?
I wrote it.
You did.
I
Oh my
did.
gosh. Woo! Fabulous.
I had recently read again The Princess and the Pea, which I think is kind of a story. And I thought, there's a queen, there has to be a queen, there's a prince. So what would her story be? And then it unrolled from there. So yeah.
Fabulous. Very fun. And I don't know anybody else, but at one point I got these flashes of like the Miss America pageant and the Bachelorette, medieval version of the Bachelorette. Anyway, it was great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, our next storyteller is Manjiri Gogate. I don't know if I hope I said that. I didn't mangle your name too much. And Manjiri, welcome back. We so happy to see you again. Please tell us the story.
Thank you, Liz. My name is Manjiri Gogte. I'm a storyteller and I live in Mumbai, India, but recently I'm in San Francisco visiting my son. The name of my story is Every Sari Has a Story. Here goes. The sari was from the olden times between 2800 and it flourished up to 1800. And in the Indus Valley civilization, and the name sari in Sanskrit means a strip of cloth. Different states in India drape the sari in a different way, and they are woven with different materials. For example, this is a Paithani sari, which is woven in Maharashtra, where I live, It has beautiful motifs of peacocks and of parrots, and it is both in silk as well as cotton. And you also have the beautiful South Indian sari kind I'm wearing. This is a cotton South Indian sari, but you also have it in silk. And you have saris from various states, like you have different languages and different cuisines. The khadi sari was woven as a by Mahatma Gandhi on his charkha, and it was the face of the freedom struggle against the British. Uh, there was recently a 100-day sari pact, which I read about, when women told different stories when they wore their saris for 100 days. And one such story stood out. It was the story of a traveler who had come to India, an American lady, and she went to a weaver to ask if there was any particular sari that she wanted to show, if there was a sari which her husband had woven, etc. So the lady got out a beautiful Paithani sari, and it is believed that in those days, Paithani saris were woven with gold and silver as a sense of security in case somebody fell on hard times. And this lady wanted to contribute to her family's household expenses, and so she was selling the sari. It was actually a sari given by her mother on her wedding day, but she had to part with it. The traveler bought the sari. Then she looked at it. It needed a little darning. And then she went back to the weaver and gave it to her, saying that you must not part with this. It is your legacy. I thought that was a touching story. There was another story where this lady who had an autistic son shared her struggles while bringing up this child. And hearing that story, many other mothers also came forward to share their struggles. And so this pact became like a place where people could bond over their memories and stories. And I thought that was really good. Listening to this, I was transported back to my childhood. My earliest memories were of my mother and grandmother, for whom the sari was the only garment they wore. They wore different saris for different times, like sleeping, going to the bazaar, or doing household chores, or going to the wedding and religious functions. And I have memories of snuggling up to my grandmother, and she would be wearing this soft muslin sari, and I can still remember the smell, the talcum powder that she used to wear. And I have very fond memories of going with my mother to sari shops to do sari shopping, and the saris would be piled on shelves, all folded neatly, and the shopkeeper, mostly men, would take them out and unfold them and drape them. And there we also learned the art of haggling with money and over endless cups of coffee. I remember my aunt telling me about a competition where you had to wear a sari and send a photograph. And she said, you might, just win it because you look like Hema Malini. I think she was just encouraging me to wear a sari. And so I just, on a lark, I wore it and I actually got the consolation prize. So that was really heartening. I also have very nice memories of my mother giving me the sari, wearing it for my son's thread ceremony when he turned 10, and for my daughter's wedding, and also my granddaughter's first birthday. And today now the sari is a bit threadbare, but I cherish it because I think it is a repository of my family history and also reminder of who I am. Tring, tring. Oh, that was the bell. I think I need to go and open the door. It must be the Amazon parcel, I think. I was back to reality and out of my dreaming. And I'm so happy to have told all of y'all, and thank you for listening. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Manjiri. Wow. I'm trying to think if I have any garment that has that history to it. And I'm not sure I do, but if any of us do, you helped us realize what a treasure that is and how the things that get passed down and the stories, that connection was really beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
All right. Wow, what a great evening of stories we've already had, and now we get to have more. Our next storyteller is another SAC board member, Claire Castell, and she's got a new one for us. She's, I think, is that what you're going to do? That's what you
I'm
said.
going to do my new one.
All right. This is just want to emphasize, we love, this is a great place to come and try a new story. So really glad that Claire is sharing it with us. We get that
Okay.
privilege.
All right. Can you hear me okay? Thank you, Manjiri. That was really lovely. That was a beautiful, beautiful memories. Love that. Well, my story is going to be very different. About 5 years ago, I started taking storytelling classes, and I was doing okay with the personal stories. But in the folk tales class, I couldn't get excited about telling stories of clever spiders or wise foxes. I just wasn't feeling it. Talking animals is not so much. Now, the storytelling teacher was really good at these teachers, but at these types of stories, but I wasn't really moved to tell anything like that. And frankly, I was disappointed in myself. And I think my teacher was also. Well, a week or so later, I was surfing the net. I was looking into a Louisiana music festival Cajun event, and there was a graphic on the poster of a blue dog. Now, some of you know that there is an artist in New Orleans called George Rique, if I'm pronouncing it right, called the Blue Dog series. And he had named this picture Loup Garou. And that's French for wolfman. I'm going to put some pronunciations, by the way, in the window here in the chat so people know what I'm talking about. Send this. All right, I'm going to send this here. I got that. All right, so I see this picture and I read about it. I find out that the loup-garou is a werewolf-like swamp beast. Now I thought, wow, now that is an animal I can get into. I've got to go find the ultimate loup-garou story and come back and impress my teacher. I hope you'll love it. Now, doing my research got to be problematic because the Cajun French takes liberties with the French from France and turned loup-garou into rougarou. So I had to search for stories with both spellings. Rougarou was always in Louisiana, or in the South, I should say. And the story of the rougarou descended from the loup-garou stories from Arcadia in New France before it was Canada. And what we ended up finding too is the rougarou stories ended up to be boogeyman stories, come straight home, or the rougarou will get you. But in Lacadie, he was a wolf man. And I really wanted to find the quintessential rougarou trail or loup-garou trail that would impress my instructor next semester. I won't bore you with all the research I did. I went down a really deep rat hole, got tons of materials, but I did make a call to a library in Louisiana, and the library said, oh, you should talk to Jonathan Foray. He produces the Rougarou Festival in Houma, Louisiana. What? Rougarou Festival? Well, I'm beside myself. So Jonathan was very helpful. We talked about it. He connected me with the woman in charge of storytelling there, and she gave me a time slot. So if I decided to come, I could tell a story. And I thought, oh, this is the place to find that story. Now, all along, I'm down this rat hole. I've been talking about my Rougarou search with my friend and neighbor, Linda. Linda's my age. We're both retired. And I say to Linda, hey, what do you think about a trip to New Orleans in September with a side trip to Houma for the festival? She says, sure, I've got no life. Let's do it. So we planned this adventure with 3 days in New Orleans to, enjoy the food and the sights. And then we rented a car and went to Houma. Our hotels, just your typical quality inn, nice enough. Some guest had a dog that howled at night, but otherwise it was a good stay. We had made friends with a young woman at the desk. Her name's Diana. Now, having traveled all this way, I would like to say this was a successful trip, but it wasn't. It was disappointing all the way around. The festival was a small neighborhood thing with, like jams and potteries and some guy playing folk songs. The storytelling was just reading books to kids. I think it was just really a tented area for hot and tired parents to park and just cool down. It was 110. And the story that I'd prepared was not a kid's story. The other thing is about the festival. It's the Rougarou Festival, but it was really all about zombies. The latest craze of zombies had taken over, and there were not werewolves or Rougarous. And the big deal was a parade that they held at night, and everybody dressed up as zombies, and doing the zombie thing. Well, that wasn't what I was looking for, but that would have been sort of interesting. However, a really strong storm was forecast, and even the parade was canceled. So, man, this was just, it was funny. It was just not working out. So Linda and I go back to the hotel, and we're talking, we have a few drinks down at the little bar. We talked to Diane, our friendly front desk woman. Hey, Diane, I was looking for the Rougarou, but it doesn't seem to be here. Have you ever seen one? And she says, well, a lot of people have seen the Rougarou out on Bayou Sally Road. It's not too far, and there's still some daylight. She's serious. She was serious. She explained that Bayou Sally Road is one of the most haunted areas in Louisiana. She says there's a ghostly hitchhiker who will steal your soul if you pick him up. So people are warned. There's supposed to be spirits from the ancient Mi'kmaq Indian burial grounds nearby. You'll hear voices, and there's some abandoned slave quarters, and there are people been seen walking around in there. And finally, several people have seen a large wolf-like man, 7 feet tall, with extremely bright yellow eyes run across the road. And it's just past the 1-lane bridge. So, Linda and I are both college educated people with careers in technology. We believe in this. Linda and I are joking on the way back to our room. The whole search for the story was a bust. But hey, it's not too far, and there's still some daylight. Now, Linda drives like a race car driver, scares me a lot, but we always manage to live. And she gets the car keys and she checks the GPS, and we head down to Bayou Sally Road. Now, the area lacks street lights. It's, pretty rural, and it's windy because that storm is coming. And we're giggling now because we're just scaring ourselves. We're giggling. We thought we heard voices from the Indian burial ground, and it probably was just the wind. And we get halfway down the one-lane bridge, and we see this hippie walking down the bridge. And we're laughing, oh no, it's the ghost hitchhiker, don't stop. We're just, scaring ourselves. Now we get across the one-lane bridge, and it gets very quiet and dark, and the wind has stopped. And there's, no street lights, and it looks pretty dark. And oh, listen, Linda, it looks like another bust here. Let's go back. So Linda pulled over to make a U-turn, but she stopped a moment to look at her phone and do something. And I'm over on the passenger side, and I'm hearing some rustling outside. I kind of, we don't roll windows down anymore, but open the window, and I hear it. Hey, do you hear that, Linda? What? No, forget about your phone. I saw something moving in the trees. And and then he was standing there. He was standing like a man, only not a man. Let's get the hell out of here. And even though Linda doesn't see what I see, she guns it. And she's looking in back of her rear view mirror, and she sees these two bright gold eyes on the tall creature following us. And I turn to, and I see it's got ears like a dog. Oh shit. And it's keeping up with us as we keep going. It's not getting smaller. It seems to keep up with us. And we're just going, oh my God, drive like hell, Linda. We get back to the hotel. Linda's skills have saved us again. We run upstairs, and we're both giggling and scared. And we pull the curtains closed and make sure our doors are locked. And for me, it was really difficult to sleep that night. And that guest dog was howling again outside. But I thought, wait, maybe our road trip to find the real Rougarou story wasn't such a bust after all. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. And, I heard you tell the traditional Rougarou story years ago. This is the story behind the story.
Yeah.
And I love how you wove the folklore and the personal.
Yeah, it's fun. And most of it's true. Most of it's true.
Thank you so much. All right. I think we just had someone else join. I hope everybody's in. Okay. All right. So our next storyteller is Vicki Ness. Can we highlight Vicki? Here, let me see if I can spotlight Vicki. Okay. There she is. All right. Vicki, we've been loving your stories. Tell us another one.
Thank you. And Claire, I just have to tell you that I love Rougarou.
Oh,
and I would love to hear your Rougarou story because so few people have ever heard of him, and he's not a damn zombie. So thank you.
Yeah, what's that about?
What? So, and thank you for the history. I didn't know about Rougarou. So that's good.
Yeah, I could bore you for hours with the history. So I really had a tough time making this a 10-minute story.
He's so cool. Well, this is a new story. I've never told it. So yeah, here it goes. The haunted house was built on a barren spot of ground. Now, Previous to that, it had been an apple orchard, and I think maybe 120 years previous to that, it was a hardwood forest. But now it was a barren, bleak patch of land. But the foundation of the haunted house had been put in, and the skeletal outline of the house was going up. Now, this house was haunted not by spirits of the past, but actually by spirits of the future that were waiting to come into this world. That house was the portal to emerging into a new life or a new period in their life. This house was very important to all these beings waiting in the netherworld of the future for this house to come into being. And so consequently, as the house went up, you could maybe see the shadow of a young girl dancing, twirling, dancing, her shadow sliding across the east wall of the house, the shadow of a girl who wouldn't be born for another 47 years. And you could hear a dog barking and party music coming from the porch, which at the moment was just a cement foundation. And then there was the sound of an older woman singing very quietly to her first grandson out in the sunny, warm rose garden, which at the moment was a dirt patch of ground. Now, this house, 223 years later, would be torn down, you see, because they would need to put up a civic center, because 223 years from that date, the city would have grown, and this would be in the center of the city. And so that little house had to go. But for right now, it was just beginning its life. And oh, sometimes the smell of wood smoke would waft up from a quaint little chimney made out of fieldstone. But of course, it was not connected even to a fireplace yet. Sometimes there'd be a slam of a screen door, slam, 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 in a summer day that there was no door in the doorway yet. And sometimes the workers who were in the house putting up sheetrock would smell, is it spaghetti sauce? It is, it's spaghetti sauce. Wait, and pie, oh, peach pie. And sometimes they'd hear just the hint of a humming song. The song a woman would sing as she's stirring a pot at the stove or rolling out her flat pastry on the counter. And it smelled so wonderful, but at the moment the kitchen had no counters, a sink, and the floor was just barren. And when they got the cabinets put in the kitchen and they got all the other drywall up, they'd hear clippity clop of kids coming down the stairs, but the stairs hadn't been built yet. And oh, the spirits of the future were pushing in on the house, waiting for their turn to come into this life. The sound of wrens flying up into eaves that had no nests and were bare. The little tickies of mice running in an attic that was totally empty. The house was aching, groaning to give birth to all these lives. And just about the time they painted the last trim around the windows and they put a lock on the door, they gave the keys to Matt and Elizabeth Johnston, who were driving up the dirt, assigning a driveway. The driveway could go here, and getting out of the car to open the door of their brand new house. You see, they were starting out life together anew. No more camping out with in-laws, no more crowded apartments. This was their house, and they were beginning a life together. And they opened the door and their faces looked like kids in a fantasy land. Oh, they went from room to room, their footsteps echoing in the emptiness, assigning curtains to that window. Yes, and oh, a pink color for that wall. The sofa could go over there. Every room was inspected up the stairs and down. They were elated. The whole house seemed to embrace them, and they sat down on the wood floor of the living room and opened up their knapsack, and in it was a bottle of bubbly and 2 flute glasses. and they poured out the champagne and they toasted each other to their new life beginning. And in the outskirts, in the netherworld, the spirits of 183 men, women, and children, 76 dogs, 53 cats, a good half dozen parakeets, and a little pet pig, and untold millions of spiders and flies and ants. And then there were the wrens and the mice, all waiting, rose up with that toast and cheered them on with a cheer of l'chaim, which means, of course, to life.
To life, and to stories. And to people who can create so many new and wonderful visions. Thank you. Wow. All right, Sally Holtzman, it's time for me to turn this over to you. I'm not hearing you yet, Sally.
Unmute, Sally.
Well, all right. It was wonderful hearing all the stories tonight and going into your experiences and of your life and your names and your clothing and your houses and your fears and all the things. It was lovely, lovely being with you. And thank you so much for coming to our swap. Really, really appreciate it. And it's just a joy to be with you again. And have a wonderful month and a wonderful year. And we'll see you again very soon, I hope. And prepare your stories, and we would love to hear them. Liz? Liz?
I was muted. All right. Well, again, I just echo Sally. Thanks again, Rupa Mohan, for being our featured Mohan. I got to get it right, Rupa. You got to.
Thank
Next
you. Liz.
time it's on your last name. But anyway.
Thank you for trying. That was sweet.
Mohan. Okay.
We have a special guest today, Sue Kessler from Assist. So can I invite her to say a few words about our upcoming youth camp?
Yes, I was just going to say we have time to chat and have some announcements and so forth. Maybe what should we stop the recording or let's have Sue give her announcement and then stop the recording for and see if there are any other announcements, and then we can maybe chat for a little after ending the recording. Okay, Sue, where are you? So this is putting Marnie on the spot because she didn't know that Sue was gonna.
Nice to see everybody. I'll talk a little bit until there we go.
And Sue, where are you? I know you're on the East Coast, right?
That's right. I am in Damascus, Maryland at the moment. So that's why you'd think I'd be early because it's later for me. But I'm with some family, so it took me a bit to draw myself away from a family gathering. But it's great to be here and great to catch even a couple of the stories tonight. And I thank you all so much. Rupa has asked me to say a word about our upcoming, and actually, I should identify what I mean by our. I work with Artists Standing Strong Together, and you may be familiar with the work of Assist. And one of our great achievements and our wonderful programs is Youth Standing Strong Camp. So this summer, we will be putting on this will be the 4th summer we've done this. It is a fully online storytelling camp for kids ages 5 to the rising year of high school. We have developed a global community of mentors from around the world and youth tellers from around the world. The kids gather online in small groups, and then they go into breakout rooms one-on-one with their own mentor. So it's a really neat model, and it's great for kids who love stories or kids who just want to dabble in some kind of new online experience. It's kind of like screen time at its finest, if you ask me. So like I said, we're doing that 1 week this summer. It's August 7th through the 11th. We're looking for mentors. So the storytelling community, we're looking for hosts. So that is tech hosts to wrangle those groups that I talked about. And we're looking for youth who would like to be part of Camp 2. I'm going to put into the chat a link to our website where you can find more information. So, and you can certainly contact me for with any questions you might have. I'll put my email in the chat right now too. And I look forward to welcoming any of you and the kids you know and love to be part of camp. Rupa, were there other things that you thought I should highlight in particular?
I just wanted to add that SAC is, ready to sponsor 2 or 3 kids. So if you know of, kids who would need some financial assistance, we are happy to, help them.
Excellent. Thanks so much to SAC and to Rupa for your generosity and support of our efforts. And thank you all again for a great, just couple of stories that I caught, but like I said, I look forward to catching up with the recording soon.
Thanks, Sue.
You bet.
Assist is an amazing organization doing so much amazing work. And if anybody has not experienced it, check it out. Absolutely. Always something going. And Sarah you're on the, I don't know, you're something board, something of.
I'm chairman of the board. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, Sarah. I don't know when you sleep.
It's a really wonderful organization, so I can't help it.
Okay. Let's end the recording, I think.